Horror movies have always had to accomplish a lot with a little, with filmmakers pulling off miracles to deliver movies that are gorgeous and terrifying in equal measure. However, audiences these days can pause to scrutinize a crystal clear freeze frame of any cinematic moment, which can sometimes completely break the illusion or highlight something terrifying you totally missed. Of course, we're going to be doing a lot of the former today, but I just want to stress that this isn't to insult the dedicated artists who pulled off these scenes, and instead it's just a bit of fun to see how the sausage was made. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 horror movies you should never pause. Number 10. The Doll of Nancy's Mother, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the most stylish and creative horror films of all time, and though the overwhelming majority of its reality-bending effects remain totally convincing today, Freddy leering through the wall, for instance, is still awesome, and his makeup has never looked better. There is one that has been downright laughable ever since the film's 1984 release. The movie's ambiguous ending sees Nancy driving off to school with her miraculously resurrected school friends as the car's very Krueger-esque hood comes down. In a final scare, Nancy's mother Marge is suddenly attacked by Freddy, who impossibly drags her body through a small window in the front door of her house. Now, even in motion, it's hilariously obvious that we're looking at a doll here, but when paused, you can see just how embarrassingly cheap and low effort the prop really is. After hundreds of watches, I'm still not sure if it's supposed to be purposefully funny or what, but hey, it's memorable alright, I'll give it that. And terrible though the 2010 remake mostly was, its CGI-driven reimagining of this ending is admittedly a lot less goofy, so I guess that's the one pro of that movie. Number 9. Michael Myers' CGI mask, Halloween H2O 20 years later. Compared to most other Halloween sequels, the 7th film was actually relatively solid, though it made the egregious, unforgivable mistake of relying on CGI, something the series hadn't much done before. The main issue was that even once shooting was underway, the director still hadn't settled on a final mask design for Michael Myers, and ended up using 3 practical masks throughout production, all of which are noticeable in various scenes, as well as an additional CGI mask. So, for the scene where Charlie bumps into Michael, actor Chris Durand was wearing one of the masks which was ultimately discarded, and because the scene called for close-up shots of Myers' mask, there was no way to disguise the fact that he was wearing the wrong one. Without the ability to just reshoot the scene, the decision was made to superimpose a digital mask over the top that better represented the main design used throughout the rest of the movie. The shot only lasts around a second or so, but it's absolutely horrible, and it's tough to believe that whatever was shot practically was less of a distraction than this. I mean, it's not quite Henry Cavill mustache bad, but it's still pretty bad. Number 8. The Babadook is always watching. The Babadook. The Babadook is one of those horror movies whose secrets continue to reveal themselves on every rewatch. The horror story about the titular monster coming to life from his own storybook features plenty of blink and you'll miss them scares. And moving away from scenes that don't hold up for just a split second, we're going to highlight some of the most effective scenes that get even scarier when you pause them. First and most famous comes towards the end, when our hero Amelia looks out of her kitchen window and into the house of her elderly next door neighbor. The first time she looks up, she sees her neighbor watching the TV with a dark hallway behind her. The second time she looks up though, she catches a brief flash of Mr. Babadook himself where the darkness previously was. It's a great sequence, and pausing it only makes it more unnerving as you get a greater look of the monster in detail. There's another moment that gets freakier when paused as well, and that's when Amelia is watching an old silent movie only to have Mr. Babadook become a part of it for a few seconds. No thank you. Number 7. The Awkward Cat Attack. Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is without a doubt one of the greatest horror films of the last 20 years, yet despite how artfully brutal it mostly is, there is one scene that's let down by some cringy visual effects. After Virginia is attacked by Eli and turned into a vampire, she visits a friend's apartment only to be attacked by her many cats. Though the scene is supposed to be blackly comedic, the use of horribly unconvincing CGI felines renders the scene a very different kind of funny, where you're chuckling at how rudimentary the effects are rather than the absurdity of a woman being mauled by a pack of cats. Thankfully, the movie's effects are otherwise sublime, but that only ensures that this scene sticks out like a sore thumb every single time. Number 6. Rick's eyeball pops out. Friday the 13th Part 3. The Friday the 13th movies get a fair degree of leeway here because they were all made relatively cheaply, but still, given that the third entry into the series was given quadruple the budget of the original film, it is fair to assume that it should have boasted effortlessly superior gore effects, right? Well, Well, sadly not. One of the film's most memorable death scenes sees poor Rick have his head crushed so hard by Jason that one of his eyeballs pops out. And because the threequel was made for a 3D presentation, of course, Rick's eye flies out towards the audience, which is, as we all know, a timeless gag. To be fair, it is a neat idea, especially for the time, but the execution is just way off. Because in addition to the extremely visible wire that the eyeball is traveling across, Rick's prop head looks nothing like an actual human being. It isn't great in motion, but when poured over as a still, it's legitimately hilarious. Number 5. Miss Burke's decapitated tentacle head. The Faculty. Robert Rodriguez's cult classic sci-fi horror film may not take itself particularly seriously, being an homage to classic alien invasion thrillers as it is, but there are nevertheless some unintentional cackles to be had from its poorly aged CGI. As Zeke attempts to escape from alien-controlled teacher Miss Burke, he ends up crashing his car, catapulting Burke herself out the window, and seemingly killing her. But moments later, Zeke sees Burke's head, attached to a bunch of alien tentacles, crawling all over her decapitated body and putting itself back together. It's a cool, gruesome idea, but the late 90s visual effects simply weren't up to the task of convincingly pulling this off. So we're forced to stare at what basically looks like a JPEG of the actress's head, awkwardly motion tracked on top of some overly shiny digital tentacles. Now, the film does get away with it because it's basically a B movie anyway, but it looks undeniably ghastly and not in a good way. Number 4. Cardboard cutout of a lady on fire. Exorcist II: The Heretic. Exorcist II: The Heretic is without a doubt one of the worst sequels ever made to a major hit movie, but it at least begins with a suitably disturbing sequence in which a priest attempts to exorcise a possessed South American girl that ultimately results in her being burnt alive. For the most part, the scene is unsettling as hell, that is, until you realise that the shots of the girl burning up were actually achieved by awkwardly compositing the actress onto a cardboard cutout. When you're watching this, pay close attention to the arms in particular, and you'll see that they don't even really resemble the definition of actual human arms. Someone just cut out a rough, vaguely human-shaped outline, hung a dress on it, and considered it good enough to set fire to. All in all, this is like the 59th thing wrong with the movie, but still, once you see it, you'll never unsee it. Number 3. The T-800's eye surgery. The Terminator. James Cameron's The Terminator is another film that understandably gets cut a lot of slack considering the sheer ambition of the director's $6.4 million sci-fi horror masterpiece. While the stop-motion Terminator endoskeleton near the end of the movie sticks out plenty, that's actually not the focus of this entry, as it actually looks a bit goofier in motion than it does when it's paused. However, the same cannot be said for the scene where the T-800 removes its damaged eye. For as eerie as it undeniably is, the shot where Cameron focuses on the rubbery prop Arnold Schwarzenegger head looks a little bit daft. Again, it's important to remember the context of the production, but given the fact that the rest of the scene is sensibly filmed with profile shots to largely disguise the budgetary constraints, this one shot feels pretty out of place. Number 2. Ash's fake head. Alien. Ridley Scott's Alien, for the most part anyway, is a masterclass in subtlety of building tension through atmosphere and what you don't see rather than relying on splashy effects. Scott smartly keeps the xenomorph concealed for most of the film, ensuring that the artifice of its creation never draws too much attention to itself. There are still a couple of iffy special effects shots though, most notably during the sequence where malevolent android Ash is burnt to a crisp for trying to murder Ripley. Though Ash's talking severed head was achieved through the elegantly simple practicality of having actor Ian Holm poke his head through a hole in the table, for any shots where Ash is moved around, an unconvincing dummy head replaced the actor. And so when Ripley knocks Ash's head over, the cut between Holm and the prop is comically jarring. Not to mention that when Parker torches Ash with a flamethrower, it's momentarily clear that the prop has no articulation of Ash's facial features at all. For an otherwise magnificently crafted film, this one definitely sticks out. Number 1. Deacon Frost's final form. Blade. Tragically, Blade has never really gotten the credit it deserves as a groundbreaking R-rated superhero movie, paving the way for the genre's unfathomable success today. And for my money, this first movie is the best in the whole franchise, though I'm not going to get annoyed if you do prefer the equally stunning second film, though I might have a few words if you try to bring Blade Trinity into the mix. However, Blade also shows how far superhero films have come technically, given the rather mixed bag of VFX on offer in this first flick. This is especially true during the final showdown between Blade and the megalomaniacal vampire Deacon Frost. Though Frost's explosive death is pretty bad, the most egregious moment comes shortly prior, when Blade slices him in half with a sword, but Frost ingeniously uses his newly acquired blood god powers to just piece himself back together. Cue an outrageously bad CGI animation of Frost's blood pooling together and reforming his body, which even back in 1998 looked pretty poor, all the more so if you dared pause it and just see how low res the digital gore actually is. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Are there any other funny stills from horror movies you've accidentally stumbled across like these? And did you notice the ones on this list? While you're down in the comments though, could you also please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.